Welcome to Nassau Community College Forum. This program explores our rich educational environment, including our dedicated faculty, administration, student clubs, and more than 70 fields of study, along with the students who make this college the largest single-campus community college in the state and is the first choice for one of every 4 college-bound high school graduates in Nassau County.
Welcome to another edition of Nassau Community College Forum. I'm your host, Zac Turkel. Along with me is my guest today, Betsy Gulotta. She is a conservation project manager of the Friends of Hempstead Plains, which is also associated with the Department of Biology at Nassau Community College. Now, here's a little bit of a bio of the Friends of Hempstead Plains. The Friends of Hempstead Plains at Nassau Community College was formed in 2001, dedicated to the perpetual preservation, restoration, and management of the site through scientific research and education. Their goals and objectives are to protect the land, to prevent further destruction of critical habitat, and promote compatible development in the surrounding area, and to also restore the ecological habitat, restore the prairie grassland that once covered the area, and rare species that depend on it, promote and provide assistance for good stewardship of the land, and to develop educational programs, offer environmental education for the community, and coordinate educational opportunities for the students of all ages, and also to promote research by college faculty and students, and also to encourage community involvement in restoration and management practices. Welcome to the show, Betsy.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. First off, where is the Hampstead Plains?
The Hampstead Plains is actually part of the campus. It's a 19-acre piece, a remnant of the historic Hampstead Plains, which is a big prairie that used to cover 40,000 acres all across the middle of Nassau County. And Nassau Community College was built on the Hampstead Plains, and the 19-acre little piece is all that's left of this huge historic prairie.
What is the Friends of Hempstead Plains? Explain it a little bit more deeply than how I explained it. How do you get involved with, how is Hempstead Plains? What is involved in it?
Well, Friends of Hempstead Plains is a nonprofit environmental organization that we formed in 2001 to really help take care of this remnant of land, and the college granted us permission to do so and set the 19 acres aside so that it would not be developed, and that it could be preserved. And our mission, part of our mission, is to restore the historic prairie habitat there.
Where exactly is the Hampstead Plains? You said it's in the campus, but where exactly so people can visit it?
Okay, it is on the East Campus, really the south side of the East Campus, along Perimeter Road and right next to Charles Lindbergh Boulevard, where the East College entrance goes in. It's a little bit difficult to find because we don't have a street address, so you have to follow directions on how to get there. But it's, if you're on Charles Lindbergh Boulevard, it's really easy to find.
As most of these buildings are in the campus, they don't have an address. They all say One Education Drive, so... How did you get involved with Hampstead Plains? Did you create it?
No, I was a biology professor for many years, and I loved to be out in the field with my students, so I would take them for walks across the Hampstead Plains. And in the early years, the Hampstead Plains was much larger because the campus was much smaller. But as the campus started to grow and more buildings were put up and more parking lots were created, we realized that the Hampstead Plains, that this prairie that was so important to the history of Nassau County, was actually diminishing and getting smaller and smaller, and we had less of a place to take our students on a field trip. And students really don't get that much chance to be outside to really see what biology is all about. So I was really interested in saving this last little parcel before it underwent development to become a parking lot or a building or something or other. And so we worked with the Nature Conservancy, which is an organization that is dedicated to saving endangered habitats. And the Hampstead Plains is actually considered an endangered habitat because prairies are very, very rare in today's world, since prairie land is probably the first type of land that would be developed by anybody that wanted to live there or move there. But we worked with the Nature Conservancy, and we asked the college administration if they would consider saving this 19-acre piece of land, and they did. So in the beginning, the Nature Conservancy helped us manage it, and there was a globally endangered species of plant growing on our land, and that was really very helpful in convincing the college that it needed to be saved. And so we actually protect this globally endangered species. It's called sand plain gerardia. It's a tiny little pink flower, but it's so rare that it's only found in parts of Long Island and Cape Cod and a little bit in Connecticut, and very, very little land of a very, very little area of this plant is left. So that was one of the key reasons that we wanted to save the prairie. But also there are certain plants and animals that can only live in this type of a habitat. And if you're interested in biodiversity of the world, saving each habitat is very, very important, because once the prairies are gone, then all those plants and animals will also be gone.
Explain the goals of the Friends of Hempstead Plains.
So our goals are to manage this 19 acres and try to restore the original pristine prairie habitat that was once there. Over the years, the land has been used historically. It was grazed, and then it was farmed, and then it was used as part of the cradle of aviation where the airplanes took off, and then it became part of Mitchell Field Air Force Base. So it had a lot of uses over time, and during that time, some of the land became a little bit degraded, and certain non-native plants moved in and started to take over. And so the original prairie habitat was diminishing. And so our goal really is to try to restore that prairie habitat and bring back the native plants and the native animals that will come along, and show people what a true tall grass prairie looks like. Because in this part of the United States, you don't see too many prairies. We're the only true prairie east of the Appalachian Mountains. And so we thought that this would be a really nice outdoor museum, in addition to an important habitat and to a place where faculty can bring students for field trips and show them what the world is really like.
The Hampstead Plains has been around for many, long before the college even opened, which is coming on 60 years, the college opening up. What has been used in the past? What kind of destruction has already occurred in the Hampstead Plains?
Well, before the college came here, the Hampstead Plains was part of Mitchell Field Air Force Base, and that land was about 2,000 acres that were all fenced in and part of government property from the beginning of the 1900s all the way up to 1961. So the land was used as an airfield for planes taking off and landing, and prior to that, the land was actually farmed, and in the 17 and 1800s, Long Island had a huge sheep industry, and the sheep roamed free on the Hempstead Plains. The town of Hempstead actually owned about 7,000 acres of Hempstead Plains, and they let the land go in common for the farmers just to graze their sheep anywhere they wanted. So the land was grazed. It was part of the cradle of aviation. It was part of Mitchell Field Air Force Base. So it had a lot of different uses over time.
So the sheep basically, you said sheep were basically roaming around the Hampstead Plains. So are you saying that once the destruction of the Hampstead Plains came about during around the time when Mitchell Field and the cradle of aviation was coming about, what would happen to the sheep? Would they just move to a different area, or would they die off? Or what would happen?
That's a very good question. The sheep were owned by the farmers, and so they were part of the agricultural industry. But in 1862, I think somewhere around there, Alexander Stewart came along, and he purchased a lot of land for building the city of Garden City. And once he did that, the Hempstead Plains shrank enough so that the sheep farming industry really had to kind of shut down, and that was kind of the end of the sheep farming industry.
Let's say someone, who exactly owns the 19 acres of the Hempstead Plains right now?
It's part of the college campus. The college owns it, but ultimately the county owns it because Nassau Community College is basically part of Nassau County.
What happens if a developer wants to actually build another building, or the college really wants to build another building, but they have no room and they have this 19 acres? What could happen? Is the land protected that no building can be built on it?
Well, the land is supposedly protected because back in 1988, when we actually started to save this 19 acres, it was put into Nassau County's perpetual preservation plan. And that means that it is actually parkland, preserved parkland, which cannot be developed. So it's really going to depend on future administrations and future legislators and future politicians of Nassau County, what will ultimately happen to it.
Let's go back in time to the 1950s, like around the time when the college was opening up, and around, let's say, I'm trying to remember what the number of students, I think it was around maybe 60 students starting to attend the college. I'm guessing, I'm not 100% sure, but when these first buildings started opening up, like Bradley Hall, the H building, the building that we're in right now, they were already there. Were they on top of the Hempstead Plains before it was built?
Yes, actually, these brick buildings that are now on our campus were part of the Mitchell Field Air Force Base buildings, and some of them were officers' buildings. Building H was their hospital. There was a store. There were other homes, officers' homes, all around the campus, and all those buildings were built on the Hempstead Plains because the Hempstead Plains, remember, was 40,000 acres all across the middle of Nassau County. So Mitchell Field Air Force Base, plus many other military training bases were held on the Hempstead Plains in one area or another, all the way back to the Spanish-American War.
Now, some of the later buildings, let's say the clusters and the tower and the G building and the CCB, were those built on top of Hempstead Plains, or were those built onto other areas of the campus?
No, all the buildings on the campus were built on the Hempstead Plains. I was teaching here when the clusters and the tower were built, and that was back in the mid-1970s. And that land was land where we had been taking our students for field trips. And so that land was now going under construction to become the clusters and the tower building and the library. And then later came building G and CCB building. But all of it was built on the Hempstead Plains.
All right, we're going to take a short break on Nassau Community College Forum. Our guest today is Betsy Gulotta from the Friends of Hempstead Plains. We'll be right back after this short intermission.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When hurricane winds are gusting? When floodwaters reach your door? Or a blizzard blocks all the roads? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to nyc.gov/readyny or call 311 and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by New York City Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
WHPC. We now return to Nassau Community College Forum.
Welcome back to Nassau Community College Forum. Our guest today is Betsy Gulotta, the Conservation Project Manager of the Friends of Hempstead Plains. I'm your host, Zac Turkel. Let's get back into some questioning. Betsy, you say that you took students back in the 1970s field trips to these different areas of Hampstead Plains. Today, are there still field trips being